Now, Pavarotti was a good friend.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I'm your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. As a disclaimer, big disclaimer, this channel's for entertainment purposes. These are my opinions. Okay, I am not here to slander anyone, and in this episode, nothing I'm going to say should be taken as anything other than speculation, because I am going to speculatively expose a lot of things in this episode. You might want to pay attention to this one, but it's purely for entertainment purposes, okay? I'm not here to hurt or slander anyone. Now, with all that being said and understood, let's get started. Okay, folks, today, and this is one I've been putting off doing for a while now, but I think it's the time for it to finally be put out there. Okay, this episode, I'm going to focus in on some of those theories and speculation that's been kind of infiltrating the YouTube community and the Idaho 4 community, and discuss some things that are true, speculatively, and some things that are not supposed to be out there in the sphere, and misconceptions. And then I'm going to finish it off with blowing them out of the water like I normally do. But you see, when somebody like myself follows this thing as close as I do, turning over every stone, well, I come across a lot of information that, frankly, kind of blows me away all the time. So whenever I hear things, and I hear people starting to get scared over things, or new information supposedly coming out, you can bet I've already been through it upside down, backwards, and reverse, because I have. So what I'm going to do in this one, and it's not an easy thing to do, but there are a lot of, I'm not going to mention any content creators' names. I am going to show an excerpt from, a recent interview that I just watched. But other than that, I'm not going to mention anybody's names. But, there's a lot of folks out there on the Idaho 4 case that started out questioning everything. And then at some point, they became convinced that Bryan Kohberger was guilty. And there has also been a lot of speculation out there that they became convinced of this because one of the family members of the victims, they conversed with them, and some secret information is always given to them. And with that secret information, they base their new opinion, and then they go in a completely different direction. And we've all seen it happen. You see, that can't happen to me, because old Pavarotti will not put any contact information out there for anybody to contact him. If somebody wants to contact me, whether it be creator, inside source, anybody, there's only one way to do it. They got to go through my comment section. That's it. You can ask any of my commenters over a long period of time. A lot of people have tried to get my contact information. I'm not giving emails. I'm not giving phone numbers. I'm not contacting people on WhatsApp. I'm not doing any of that. I don't want to contact anybody directly outside of the public sphere for my own safety and other reasons. So when I put this stuff together, it's not because somebody has magically given me some information. It's because I've investigated it. So when I hear about it, I already know. And ask anybody. Anything that you want to know that I know, you can always find them in my comments. You can go through my comment section. Anything anybody's ever told me, it's, I don't delete comments. A lot of people out there say, well, I put comments up and they've been deleted. Folks, that's got to be YouTube, because it isn't me. I told you there's only 3 people I've ever blocked from my channel, and it was just simply because they were disrupting my other people's conversations. So other than that, I've never deleted a message, ever. So with all that being said, I'm going to expose some truths to you. Things that I've known for a while that I didn't want to put out there because I read the court docs and I understand the implications of putting it out there. But again, this is just speculation. This is just entertainment, right? So if you want to know the big secret that keeps getting told to these content creators that turns them from trying to seek the truth and turns them into Kohberger did it, plain and simple. They're told that the Doordash driver is a witness in the case. And not only a witness in the case, but they actually had seen Bryan Kohberger sitting in his car as they were delivering the food, and they're identifying him, and they're a witness. And I can tell you that when you go to, for instance, I use a lot the Steve G texts. Okay, in the Steve G texts, there's a couple of different things mentioned. Several of them is the confidential informant that the FBI is protecting. Okay, that's not the witness, and I'm going to prove that to you in this. That is a confidential informant. That one's totally different. But the other person that testified, and by the way, the grand jury members that Steve G talked to, they would not give information about the confidential informant because they would have been made known for sure the difference between a confidential informant, a cooperating witness, or a confidential source during that grand jury. So they wouldn't give information. They may say there was one, but they wouldn't tell them about it. But the confidential source, which is a witness, is one that they would give information about because they wouldn't go over how much privacy is involved with that during that grand jury. So when you see Steve G's text and one of them says, "Have you heard about the cooperating witness?" That one is referring to the Doordash driver, in my opinion. The other ones are referring to the confidential informant. So these people are two different things, okay? And I've already let the cat out of the bag on the witness that's against Mr. Kohberger. The defense knows all about him. That's why they have listed in their records that they're going to use their witness as Kohberger's verification of his alibi. So I'll let y'all figure all that out from there because we've already been through it. I've told you who it is. But when we get to, like I just watched the Drunk Turkey show and his interview with Forensic Frenzy. And one of the things that they had discussed in that, it seemed like Forensic Frenzy had actually decided that Bryan Kohberger was the Doordash driver again. And Drunk Turkey, he believes otherwise. He believes the Doordash driver, in my opinion, I'm not saying that, this is what I took from their interview. In my opinion, he believes that the Doordash driver is a female and she's just a witness. I believe that Forensic Frenzy believes that that witness for the prosecution is a woman. However, she believes something different about that witness that came forward. She believes Bryan Kohberger is the Doordash driver. And they talk about, the Twilio app. And that's one thing that kind of frustrates me. I know y'all hate it when I even bring up Drunk Turkey. I like Drunk Turkey. I think he has, I like his style. He has good points that he makes. He is, kind of blinded to Kohberger's guilt, and I blame the situation I'm talking about right now to that. But one thing that I am going to get on to him about in this one, I'm going to go ahead and do it. One thing I'm going to get on to him about is the fact that he keeps pulling back on one thing. And I think if he actually watches this video, he's going to know what that one thing I'm talking about is, because I've noticed him do it in the past, and I've seen him do it again in this video. You see, when Forensic Frenzy is talking about the Twilio app, she's assuming that Kohberger has that app and he's using it for Doordash. Well, Drunk Turkey don't think that. He thinks that he's using that Twilio app for something else. Let me show you the clip from the interview.
I've seen that, and I thought, if he has a second number, what else could that be used for, though? What are those numbers primarily used for outside of Uber? Or is that what it is? Uber Eats, Uber Delivers, stuff like that?
You see, Drunk Turkey knows what I know. And that's why I say everybody hates the Drunk Turkey, but in some points of view, him and I align. One is the fact that Mr. Kohberger was using again, but he was using a stimulant, not the H. And he knows that, or he very strongly has the opinion of that. And I know he does because I've listened to his stuff in the past. But for some reason, like right there, Drunk Turkey, you started to hammer down on the point that people were using that Twilio app for illicit substances, and you backed up again. Come on, man. Just if you think it, say it. Get it in the conversation. But anyways, I'm going to move past that point because I think it's important. Now, I'm going to show you here in a minute through the court docs and through other avenues why this Doordash driver thing is legit. They've been hiding that from you for a long time. Yeah, the Doordash driver is a material witness supposedly against Mr. Kohberger. And it makes a ton of sense. Let's listen to the rest of that interview real quick, and then I'm going to show you why they believe what they believe, because it's easy to see why they believe what they believe. Then I'll show you why it's not right and what the speculative truth really is. All right, so let's take a look.
Some of those things, but you mentioned the Doordash driver, and I know that you mentioned the I think I can't remember, Twilio number. The only thing that my question comes up is because I know that you thought maybe there's the possibility that Bryan Kohberger was a DoorDasher. Is that true?
Yeah. So I used to believe that maybe he could have been the DoorDasher, and then I let it go. But then I found the Twilio number, and it just reignited it. So that's why I asked.
Yeah. Well, just I don't think so. Just because it says in the PCA that the DoorDash delivery drivers reported the information about the DoorDash delivery. So I don't even think law enforcement knew about the DoorDash delivery until the DoorDasher came forward and said that there was a DoorDash delivery there at that house. But yeah, I hadn't seen that. And I thought, if he has a second number, what else could that be used for though? What are those numbers primarily used for outside of Uber? Or is that what it is? Uber Eats, Uber Delivers, stuff like that?
So, let's say either one of us, right? We just talked about owning businesses. So we're running a business, and instead of our cell phone number, we want our clients or customers to have like a discrete number where they can still reach our phone at any time, but they don't have to have our actual personal telephone number. So we actually can use this service, but it's literally provided to DoorDash, Uber, Grubhub, Lyft, like stuff like that. Even like the Spark driver, when they send you the text messages, if you get like Walmart Spark orders, but they're assigned to those kinds of people, and it's meant to keep their identities in their phone private from you as well. So when we're going back and forth with that DoorDasher and they're like, hey, we're waiting at the restaurant for your food. Oh, we're on our way. Sorry, it's taking a little bit longer. We're getting those messages from a Twilio number, not from the DoorDasher's number.
Interesting.
Okay, now before I destroy that theory, I'm going to have to first back up why they believe it, because I don't believe these people are believing something because it's far-fetched and dumb. I think these are very smart people, and they're believing things because they can go back and look at things, and it certainly seems to appear that way. So before I demolish it, first let me back it up. Okay, now these are out of the court documents for the Doordash warrant. Now remember, the Doordash warrant was not issued until December 6th, 2022. So I'll call myself out. I did several videos about this Doordash, and in those videos, I talked about the fact that they didn't file the warrant till December 6th. And I said, how could law enforcement have been so ridiculously out of it to not even pursue the Doordash until December 6th? And a lot of people came to me and said that they had heard that the Doordash had actually come forward within a couple of days. So You know, and I kind of took that and ran with it because it made sense to me. And in one of my timelines, I actually put, I think we all agree that the Doordash came forward sometime between the first couple of days of the investigation. And another content creator called me out on it, said, I don't think that's true, and couldn't find any information about it, and said I was just making crap up and putting it on there. So my timelines going forward after that, I did remove that because they were absolutely right. I was just taking the general consensus and putting it on there as part of my investigation. So I was wrong for that. I mean, the facts are they did not pursue the Doordash driver until December 6th. So once again, how could law enforcement be that dim-witted? I mean, considering you got FBI and everybody else, they didn't investigate the Doordash order. But when they finally did, well, I think some things came of that, okay? And you can see this right here. This is back in March where they had a hearing to seal all the information about the Doordash order and the Doordash driver and everything. That's why you haven't been able to really get any information on this in a long time. Even though Drip Drop, I know a long time ago, said Bryan Kohberger was the Doordash driver. So that isn't something that we haven't heard before. But this is why. It says this matter came before the court February 10th, 2023 on the court's motion to seal or redact pursuant to ICAR 32I. That's Idaho Criminal Administrative Rules 32I. And we'll look at that here in just a minute. Okay, and this hearing was held via Zoom with William Wolford Thompson, Ashley Jennings, and they appeared on behalf of the state, and Taylor appeared on behalf of Mr. Kohberger. You see, Ann Taylor doesn't really want the information on the Doordash driver out there either, because out there in the public sphere, if everybody knows that there is a witness against Bryan Kohberger, it's going to be prejudicial against Bryan Kohberger. That's why I haven't done this video. But now people are starting to get that information out there without any backup, and I have to do it. I have to expose it for what it is. All right, so the court reviewed the records, considering the arguments presented, weighed the interest in privacy and public disclosure, and announced its finding of fact on the record. Therefore, the court finds it's necessary to seal, in part, and redact the record related to the search warrant because the documents contain highly intimate facts or statements, the publication of which would be highly objectable to a reasonable person. ICAR 32I2A. So let's take a look at the Idaho Criminal Administrative Rules on that so that we're clear on everything. Okay, first we've got 32I. All right, other prohibitions or limitations on disclosure and motions regarding the sealing of records. Physical and electronic records may be disclosed or temporarily or permanently sealed or redacted by order of the court on a case-by-case basis. Any person or the court on its own motion may move to disclose, redact, seal, or unseal a part or all of the records in any judicial proceeding. And then when we skip down here, we'll see that it says it may be necessary to prevent harm to any person or persons. Okay? That's 32I. Now let's go to 32IA. All right, that the documents or materials contain highly intimate facts or statements, the publication, so publication, that means putting it out there to us, of which would be highly objectionable to a reasonable person. Okay? So those are the statutes that they're citing when they redact and seal it. And I'll show you why that's important here in a second. Okay, here's another part of the warrant. And it says, based upon the motion to seal the search warrant related to documents filed herein, the court does hereby order the affidavit for the search warrant, including any exhibits, the search warrant, return of the search warrant, inventory seized, they're all ordered confidential, exempt from disclosure, and are sealed pursuant to Idaho Court Administrative Rule 32G1. Now, when they say sealed and exempt from disclosure on this, the defense has the disclosure on the Doordash, all right? They have the disclosure on this witness. This isn't like the confidential informant. And they got it at 32G1, okay, for the reasons stated in the motion. So this is one that the defense knows all about. But let's look at 32G1. 32G1s are court records exempt from disclosure except as provided in this paragraph H in this rule, court records specified below are exempt from disclosure. Any willful or intentional disclosure, look at this, any willful or intentional, that's why I'm saying this is all speculation on Pavarotti's part, a disclosure or accessing of a sealed, shielded, or exempt court record not otherwise authorized under this rule may be treated as contempt of court. So that means anybody disclosing this stuff that actually has access to any of these records, they can be charged with contempt of court. I don't have access to any of this stuff. Documents or records which is accessed is otherwise restricted by state or federal law. I have access to none of this stuff, but I can pick fly shit out of black pepper and figure it out. However, other people that have access to this stuff, well, they need to be real careful on what information they're putting out there. You can see the state of Idaho buying through Latah County prosecuting attorney. This is another redacted part of the search warrant for Doordash. Pursuant to Idaho administrative rule that we just read, 32G1, and Idaho Code 74124, they ordered to seal the search warrant and all the items seized. So now, what do we got to do? Yeah, we got to look up 74124 because that's the state one. And you can see exemption from disclosure. And what are the reasons? You know, we see these all the time and we try to figure them out. Well, here we go. Number 4, I'm not going to read them all. I'm going to read you the ones that are important. All right. The second one, this is the one that's really important to the defense. All right. Deprive a person of a right to a fair trial or an impartial adjudication. So they're saying that's part of the defense. They agreed for disclosure on this because they don't want out there in the public sphere that the prosecution has an eyewitness that's going to be testifying against Bryan Kohberger. So for anybody to have access to this knowledge, bad boys, SG, and then disseminate it out there to, say, content creators so that they can shift their motives, well, that is bad. That is really contempt of court. And it's going to deprive a person of his right to a fair trial or an impartial adjudication. But then we've got the prosecution. Why would they want to keep it secret? Well, disclose the identity of a confidential source. Remember that. And in the case of a record compiled by a criminal law enforcement agency in the course of a criminal investigation, confidential information furnished only by the confidential source. Okay, now remember, for those of you that have been watching me close, I actually did a video just not too long ago explaining the differences between a confidential source, a cooperating witness, and a confidential informant. Okay, remember the confidential source was the one that would be used as a witness that doesn't have any involvement in other criminal activities. Okay? So the Doordash driver is not a cooperating witness or a confidential informant. They are simply a confidential source. So don't get them confused with the confidential informant. It's different than the confidential source. But that's why they would want this stuff not to get out there. And when bad people put this information out there, it's going to deprive a person of the right to a fair trial and impartial adjudication. So by putting that out there, when you have inside knowledge on it, you are in contempt of court, in my opinion. But this is just an opinion thing. You know, it's my speculation. It's entertainment, right? So then we've got the last piece that would really make somebody believe that this witness is possibly legit and really buy into this story. That's why I say these people aren't dumb. They look at stuff like this, I'm sure, and then they are able to figure it out. Or they may be directed to stuff like this to figure it out. But this is the last part of that warrant where it talks about all the information related to the sales, deliveries, purchases, and transactions made to 1122 King Road in Idaho for the period of January 1st through the present include. Now look at this. It tells you all the stuff it includes, but I want you to look at this. From January 1st to the present, What in the heck, right? They just need the records from that night, don't they? No, remember when they got Kohberger's phone history, they went back to what? They went back 6 months, right? So what they tried to do was go back from January to the present, match up Kohberger's historical data to times Doordash drivers were making deliveries to the King Road house. And then developing, had they seen Kohberger's car there in the past when they have those records of him, his history of his location, supposedly going to the house 13 times or 12 times, whatever. They tried to match it up with the Doordash driver making deliveries that time of night, and then they're going to say that they witnessed him there on more than one occasion. This is why they believe that. Now, I think Forensic actually believes that Kohberger really is the Doordash driver, which I'll prove that's not the case here in a minute. I'll also debunk this Doordash driver being able to identify him here in just a minute as well. And then I will go into the real story. Okay, so there's that. Now, there's other reasons why they would absolutely think that the Doordash, that Bryan Kohberger was the Doordash driver. And it's not easy to miss it in this video. Check this out.
So here's Nevada Street, like we're saying. Up here is like Stimson Hall, Neal Hall, Walter Hall, just all a bunch of halls, and then Owen Science and Engineering, Library, Office of Academic Engagement. That's all that's up here. There's really nothing else. So I don't think it's going to any of the libraries or buildings. They're all closed up. We're talking about 3:00 a.m. on Sunday morning. Okay, so that's all closed up. So I would think, if anything, it's going to somebody's hall, right? Okay, this vehicle. And then what's south here on Nevada Street, where it's coming from? This is all kinds of campus housing. It's Yakima Village is campus housing. All this down here is campus housing. Columbia Village is all campus housing. These are halls as well for undergraduates, all this. So that's really all it is. And so it's coming from this area, this vehicle. It's coming from this area, and it's going north on Nevada Street, going to another area, which is all halls, and then coming back to an area, which is all halls. So when I'm looking at this, I'm like, if this isn't the suspect, if this isn't, Bryan Kohberger, then who could it possibly be? And I gave a scenario for that. So I said, what do you see? That's right, dorms and/or halls everywhere. This 2014 to 2016 white Hyundai Elantra was visiting these dorms. And if it was the arrested suspect, he had to have been there for a long time in order for his vehicle to not have been captured on video by the traffic cameras between Steptoe and this area on campus, meaning at least 8 hours or longer. Because you think they would have reviewed all that footage for that period of time. And they wouldn't have seen his vehicle making its way to here. So if it was the arrested suspect and he was at one of these dorms, who was he visiting? He had to be visiting someone, right? That person would be his alibi if this is suspect vehicle 1. If this suspect vehicle 1 belongs to the arrested suspect. But since the defense has not submitted an airtight alibi, then I submit this vehicle is not the arrested suspect's vehicle, and I submit instead it's perhaps. Now we know that they did submit an alibi, but the alibi they submitted is implying, in my opinion, in part, that this very well may not be his vehicle, because it seems like they're implying that his vehicle, when it's engaging in this cellular activity for these cellular resources, that somehow Cy-Ray is going to show that those cellular resources would put him not on the WSU campus when this cellular activity occurs, but south of Pullman, and southwest of Pullman. So once again, it's still not making the arrested suspect's vehicle. So I'm still right about this. So if it's not the arrested suspect's vehicle, then what is it? Then I submit this vehicle is not the arrested suspect vehicle, and I submit instead it's perhaps is a Doordash driver.
you can see how, just looking at that, even though he wasn't saying that he was a DoorDash driver, you can see where somebody else would look at that and go, wow, man, he is the DoorDash driver. Oh my goodness, it's all made sense now. He's the DoorDash driver. Well, let me explain just real simple, real quick, why Bryan Kohberger is not the DoorDash driver. Number one, during the hearing, if Bryan Kohberger was the DoorDash driver and he testified, he went in there and testified on his own behalf that he was the DoorDash driver, and he did it. He seen himself there at the location. Ridiculous. Okay? The other thing is the supposed statement of the DoorDash driver, if they're saying that they seen his car sitting there, in the PCA, it says the DoorDash driver delivered the food at 4 a.m. Now, according to Frenzy, they're saying that he delivered the food, or maybe it was Drunk Turkey that said it, that he delivered the food, and then he was sitting in his car after delivering the food, or right before delivering the food, and they noticed that Kohberger was sitting in his car up there. Well, obviously that isn't the case. If he delivered the food at 4 a.m., they're saying Kohberger's car didn't park until 4:06. So it's just not the case, folks. He's not the DoorDash driver. The DoorDash driver is Emma Bailey. There's no doubt about it. It's all speculation. I'm not 100% sure. It's Emma Bailey. And that is Kohberger's witness that is going to be cross-examined to verify his alibi. So both sides are getting played here. But when you watch that video just now of that content creator explaining those odd passages there in Washington before law enforcement says he got on 270 and headed to Moscow, we've already been through that it's not his car at Floyd Cannabis Shop, and they're not disclosing the Red Star Coffee footage that would probably exonerate him. So, but he was showing those movements of the car in that neighborhood and how it was odd, how it looked like a DoorDash driver. Well, let me show you what the PCA says, and then I want to show you what actually happened. Okay, so here we are on the PCA once again, and it says investigators were given access to video footage on Washington State University campus located in Pullman, Washington. A review of that video indicated that at approximately 2:44 on November 11th, a white sedan, which was consistent with the description of the white Elantra known as Suspect Vehicle 1, consistent in the fact that it's a white Elantra, was observed on WSU surveillance cameras traveling north on Southeast Nevada Street at Northeast Stadium Way at approximately, that's the end of it right there, okay? So it's heading up. You see it at the intersection of Northeast Stadium Way and Nevada Street, and it's heading north on Southeast Nevada. And then at approximately 2:53, that is 7 minutes later, a white sedan, which is consistent with the description of the white Elantra known as Suspect Vehicle 1, which is not the case because down here it says that you identified it as a 14 to 16, so you know it's not the same car. But it's consistent with it. It's a white Elantra. Was observed traveling southeast on Nevada Street towards SR 270, which connects Pullman, Washington to Moscow, Idaho. Okay, so I was watching that other content creator explain this, and he conveniently left out this part right here, towards SR 270, okay? So when we look at this is what really happened, folks. All right, here's Southeast Nevada Street and Northeast Stadium Way. It's saying at 2:44, that car was captured heading this way, north. And it's captured by these traffic lights that I could zoom in and show you. They've got really good lights, but I'm not going to. So it was captured by those traffic lights heading in that direction, north on Southeast Nevada Street. And then for some reason, for about 8 minutes, somewhere up in here, we don't know, some time was spent. And then after that time was spent, the vehicle would have been coming back south on Nevada Street. And it said, look at that, made a little line there. It said it's coming back south on Nevada Street, and it's captured at Northeast Stadium Way doing what? It doesn't say Northeast Stadium Way heading towards Olympia, heading towards south this way. No, it says heading toward SR 270, this road right here. So when it says the vehicle's is coming south and it's going to turn on, it doesn't say turn on Northeast Stadium Way, but it says to Northeast Stadium Way headed towards 270. It doesn't take a genius to figure out that the vehicle's turning at this light heading towards 270. So that means they're saying the vehicle came this way in the PCA. I mean, there's no doubt about that. This light obviously worked, or this is the camera they focused in on. It caught the car going this way at 244, and then it caught him coming back and turning this way at 253. Now, a good point was made by him that down here, I can't go down that far, but down here is Bishop Boulevard where there were other cameras, and they're not saying they caught him on the Bishop Boulevard camera. So either they didn't get the Bishop Boulevard camera or something else happened. Now, he maintained that chances are he didn't go this way, even though that's what the PCA says, that he went this way and took back roads down back to 270. But that would mean that if he did that, then he was on 270 and he went across to Moscow. So that's what I'm saying. They're trying to prove that he went across to Moscow, and they captured him on Floyd Cannabis Shop, and then probably on Red Star Coffee, and then they got rid of the camera footage, which they now try to say is, that camera wasn't there. Yeah, that camera was there. It was there during the time. It's captured the footage of the car that would exonerate Kohberger. They could prove it's not his car. That's why they're withholding that evidence. Good try, though, folks. But here's what actually happened, folks, because this is something nobody ever brings up to you anymore. They did a long time ago. But what is this right here? See this thing I'm circling? That is Coffee House Apartments. Okay, now who lives at Coffee House Apartments at this time? Because he was unalived at Coffee House Apartments, not, 32 days after the unalivings? Okay, that's where Brent Kopacka lives, right here. Right here. So the car was seen turning towards 270 off Northeast Nevada Street, Stadium Way, going this way at 253. So he didn't go this way. He came down and he went this way, away from Moscow. So they wouldn't even bother to get camera footage to prove he was driving away from Moscow. So what'd he do? He drove right down through here. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, I gave you the wrong road. He drove up, came down this road right through here to Coffee House Apartments, picked up Kopacka, and then they came back out. And the reason you don't see them on Bishop down there is because they didn't go that way. They went this way. They went this way after he picked up Kopacka. Here's what really happened. Okay, and this, I'm just showing you again the route, right? The red route is him coming back down Nevada Street, coming around, going, picking up Kopacka right here. Here's Kopacka. And then the blue street is the route they took out. And why did they take that route out? Because they left there and they went to Wawaway Park. And you could see by leaving there and coming that way, they would have avoided the camera at Bishop. And they certainly wouldn't be the one that's on 270 getting caught over here at Floyd Cannabis Shop and Red Star Coffee. Instead, they went this way down to Wawaway Park. And you can see taking that route would take about 27 minutes. All right? Now, by taking 27 minutes, they last seen him at 253. By the time he has enough time to pick up Kopacka, call it 255. That puts them at Wawaway Park at roughly 322, somewhere around there. So if that's the case, and that's all the defense really has to prove. Oh, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Let's see. Here we go. So if they're at Wawaway at 322, show you this. at 322. If they're at Huawei. Well, if they took the fastest route known to Google anyways, this blue line is the fastest route. And that, if they're here at 322, they couldn't get here until 402 to the King Road residence. Now, I know what you're going to say. Oh, my goodness, Pavarotti, that would put him there right at the time of the unalivings. Well, not exactly, because 326, they captured video footage of suspect vehicle 1 on Indian Hills Boulevard. 328, they got the really good picture of him on Steiner, where he didn't appear he had a front license plate. The only place that says that in the whole PCA. So that is the camera to focus on defense. That and Red Star Coffee, you got him proved he's not going in there, and you got him proved he didn't go in the back way. But anyways, at 326, there is no way in God's green earth he could have been that vehicle if they're at Huawei at 322. Okay? Now you hear people trying to say, oh, well, he was in Johnson and the towers were picking them up in Johnson, even though the law enforcement said they were south of Blaine, north of Genesee, so that could have happened. And then they could have went to Huawei after that and taken a screenshot of a picture and used the screenshot of the picture as the new metadata on the picture. Folks, Kohberger had an iPhone, okay? It's in the court docs. He had an iPhone. If you screenshot a picture of another picture, that iPhone will absolutely document it. So those arguments that you're hearing now are, I mean, those are really ridiculous. Those are more ridiculous than the frat boys on steroids, okay? In my humble opinion. Now, they went to Huawei. I'm sure they've got a picture with metadata that can prove that they were there around this time, which means their vehicle could not be at 326 on Indian Hills. The fastest they could get there would be 402, but let me explain why that's not probable either. Because you can see these only two routes that would get there in that amount of time. This one 40 minutes, this one 40 minutes. Well, law enforcement scattered the area around the times of the atrocity and pulled up all those cameras. They got Floyd Cannabis Shop. They got Red Star Coffee, right? They've got all these other cameras that they could have captured the vehicle footage on, and it would have been around the time of the atrocity, so they would have captured it, and they would have absolutely used it in the PCA as evidence. They wouldn't have held it back. So they didn't have the vehicles on those cameras going this way at those times, so they couldn't even have been there at 402. They're probably getting there around 440, 430, 450, somewhere in that area. And then, last but not least, here's the final truth to the matter. They probably left Shetland Court here between 5 and 5:05, and this is the more likely route that they took back because they just picked up things that were illegal to pick up, and they certainly wouldn't want to go the main roads where all the law enforcement are because you don't want to get pulled over. So they went this way back. And then his phone started reporting to the network probably somewhere in here at 448, which would have been on that same tower according to Twizzlestick. And then they head back this way and get picked up on the camera at Johnson at 5:25 a.m. And I haven't followed it back out here from Johnson. I will here going forward. I've done a whole lot here lately, folks. But I imagine if you follow the route from Johnson all the way up back to his apartment in the PCA, it probably lends plenty of time for him to stop back by Coffee House Apartments and drop off Brent Kopacka. In fact, when you go back and you look now, let's see what makes more sense. They see him going northeast on Nevada Street up this ways up here for 8 minutes, which means he probably came from over here, which that could have been the way he took to get over there. Maybe not. Maybe he made a stop over here and picked up some money that was owed to Brent Kopacka. And then they see him go up this way. He's disappeared up here for 8 minutes, just enough time to pick up some more money that was owed to Brent Kopacka. And then came back down, went over, gave Brent Kopacka the money he picked up for him, and then both of them headed back out to get some more. You see, that's the truth in the matter, folks, according to my speculation. Oh, by the way, Twilio, the reason that Drunk Turkey was going to suggest what I'm dang sure, about 1,000% sure he was going to suggest, is the fact that if you did have a Twilio app, you can see it's used to send and receive messages. You can use WhatsApp, which WhatsApp is more for a business purpose if you did have a Doordash. Chat messages, best-in-class communications, but people will get a Twilio account and use it to send and receive texts. And people in the narcotics community will sometimes use apps such as that to communicate so that they're not on the law enforcement's radar. However, there has been 0 search warrants issued for Twilio. So the Twilio app thing is not applicable to this case, so nobody freak out about the Twilio app. They never even issued a search warrant for that. So in the end, that is the big secret out there, that the Doordash driver is the witness against Bryan Kohberger. Now you go and you look at all the content creators that were looking for the truth and then all of a sudden became guilters, and you'll find that they were all given that inside knowledge. Well, folks, if you look close enough, that inside knowledge is nothing more than a tactic that the defense is going to use to prove Kohberger's alibi. Like I've been saying over and over, he probably didn't have a Twilio app. If he did, he was using that to communicate with people in that world that I was discussing. There is no warrant in the court docs for Twilio. But even if they come up with one, all they're going to do is find probably the same thing that they found when they got his actual phone, which was transactional things, if you know what I mean. The thing that they want to hide from you more than anything is the Brent Kopacka connection. But Kohberger's not the Doordash driver. That Doordash driver didn't identify Kohberger at the house. That's going to be exposed. And that's all I'm going to say in this one. Folks, I have a busy week coming up. I've tried to get as much information out there in the shortest period of time this week that I could for you, and I know I put a lot of them out there. I'm probably not going to do very many this week. I've got a lot of things I got to take care of. I do have a lot more information to share with you, and we'll get in a lot deeper into the information I've found on the Aryan family and how they pertain to this thing, because we're close. We're close on everything. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments and your thoughts. Until next time, Pavarotti is out.